Good morning to all my friends and family, and welcome to this episode of all that I have learned from Tony Robbins over the years. It's Friday morning, and this is vlog number 11 of 50 that I'm putting together to try and capture all of the wonderful learnings that I've picked up and accumulated over the years from Tony Robbins, from back in the days when I did UPW back in 94 and 95, and I did it for the third time just recently here in Sydney, and saddened by the fact that this is probably the last UPW that's going to be hosted here in Australia. But I've had a wonderful journey over the years with Tony Robbins, having been to his seminars, having read his first two books, Unlimited Power and Awaken the Giant Within. And as I've said on previous occasions, not only did I read those books, but I studied them with intent, taking lots and lots of notes, highlighting them, underlining them, and anecdoting them thoroughly. And I also remember the wonderful times that I've spent in the car driving to work, or driving to holidays, or going places, and listening to various Tony Robbins tape series like Personal Power, which once again was a fantastic series. And I also remember reading or listening to a number of his interviews where he interviewed leaders in their field to try and understand what half dozen things they focused on that help make the most difference and distinguish them from everybody else. So I absolutely love doing what I do, and I welcome you to stay with me, to connect with me on this journey of growth and development, where we can become each other's partners in development, where we can grow together and we can share the OPE, the lots and lots of OPE that is available to all and sundry. And when I say OPE, I mean other people's experiences, because we can go through life trying to invent the wheel by ourselves, but for all the problems, all the challenges that we have, other people have had similar problems and solved those problems. So it makes sense, rather than to try and reinvent a solution using limited sort of resources, to be able to tap into other people's experiences, other people's successes, learning from their successes and their failures, to ensure that we can have a better crack at life. So what I'd like to do today is go through some material that Tony Robbins detailed and talked about in his UPW weekend seminar. And most specifically, I want to talk about something called the different needs, the different human needs that we have. And it's these needs, these human needs, that drive many of our behaviors. And depending on how we prioritize these needs, will also give us a clue to what makes us tick, what makes others tick, and what sort of problems we're going to experience throughout our lives. I really enjoyed this session that Tony Robbins did at the UPW on these needs, and to be honest with you, I don't think that he did it back in 94, 95, because I would have remembered it, because it's so profound and so important to be able to balance these needs and to appreciate these needs and to calibrate these needs, that it's something that I think is a great addition to his body of work and his legacy. So Anthony Robbins says that we basically do things for one of 6 reasons, or for a combination of those 6 reasons, but in varying sort of weightings. And these things are called the human needs, the things that a human needs in order to feel fulfilled and in order to live their lives. And the first 4 are the personal needs, and the last 2 are what we call spiritual needs. But this is the food, this is the fuel that gets us going, keeps us going, gets us up early in the morning and keeps us up late at night, and the sort of stuff that human beings relish and crave for in order to be living a purposeful and directional life. So we'll just go through each of those needs, and I'll try and talk to them as best I can. It's been a few weeks since the seminar, so a lot of the learnings and a lot of the knowledge that I gained has dropped off. So I'll do my best, and hopefully you can fill in the gaps just using your own knowledge and rationale, and just connecting with your experience and the things that make you tick as well. So the first thing that Anthony Robbins says in terms of the 6, or I might just read them out all together, I may just itemize the 6 first, and then we'll talk in detail about each one of them. And he says that the first thing that people need in their lives is a thing called certainty. But sorry, these aren't in any particular order. This is just a list that was presented, and the order, each person makes the order and prioritizes the order, and depending on how they're prioritized and sequenced will determine how they view and how they live their lives. So let's just make that point clear from the very beginning. So the first one on the list, not the first one that we should have as a priority, is certainty. So people need certainty in their lives, and Anthony Robbins reminded us that people are driven by 2 things within certainty, and it's pain and pleasure, and that people will do more to avoid pain than to gain pleasure in their lives. The second item on this list is that people also need uncertainty in their lives. They need certainty, but they also need uncertainty, because if life was so certain, if you knew exactly what was going to happen in your future, then either you'd be scared shitless and would want to commit suicide, or you'd be bored shitless because life is just too predictable. So people need a certain level of risk, a certain level of uncertainty in their lives in order to colour it, in order to amplify and accentuate it, and to make it tasteful, and to make it enjoyable. Not knowing what's coming next is something that some people crave, some people more than others. Some people love certainty more than uncertainty, other people like uncertainty more than certainty. But the first 2 on this list are certainty and uncertainty, which is easy to understand. The third item on the list is that people sometimes need to feel significance. They want to feel needed, they want to feel special, and that is one of their driving agendas in their lives. And of course that has its advantages and disadvantages, its rewards and its punishments. So the feeling of being significant, being important, being noticed. The fourth one on the list here is where people are seeking in their lives connection and love, to be connected to somebody else, to be to love and be loved by somebody else, and to understand that humans are social, is what I'm looking for, social beings, and we don't do well in isolation, is what Tony Robbins was saying. We don't do well in isolation, and we need to circulate and socialise with other people. So they're the first four needs, and the next two are humans need growth. So we need to grow and develop. We need to progress in our lives, or at least to feel like we're progressing. And the last one is we need to contribute, or to feel that we are contributing in some way, shape or form. So they're the 6 basic needs, the basic human needs that people need in various configurations and various amounts. And it varies, of course, depending on your age, what season you are in your life, the phases of your life, the chapters of your life, and they could vary also throughout the day. In the morning, you may have different human needs to what you have throughout the day, and in the evening. Once again, these are just an example of what make people tick, so that we can think about it, we can consider it, and we can then look at ourselves and try and figure out ourselves in terms of what makes us tick as individuals, and then of course look at our partners, look at our children, our parents, our relatives, our workmates, and the people around us, and calibrate what our needs are and sequence them in a way and prioritize them in a way that's going to give us the best outcome in our lives, and to understand the first, second and third level consequences of spending too much time chasing certain needs at the expense of missing out on other needs. So that's a summary, a brief summary of what the basic human needs are, and we'll talk about them in a little bit more detail now, using some of the exercises and examples that Tony Robbins shared with us and talks about. So in terms of certainty, one thing that I guess I appreciate in my life is that we live in an uncertain world. Nobody knows what today is going to bring to them. In many ways, nothing much is going to change, but for some people, everything's going to change. You just don't know what today is going to bring. You don't know what God's will is for you today. But what we need to, I guess, appreciate is that we live in a very, very uncertain world, and everything can change for the better or for the worst in a heartbeat. And what we need to do is we need to roll with the challenges, to embrace and accept the challenges, and to understand that life is very, very different. It's different for you, it's different for me. And everybody is going to have a completely, and I say completely different past. We've all had a different past. We're all going to have a different present. I am here, you're somewhere else. You could be in a different time zone or a different space altogether and watching this at a different time. So we're all going to be experiencing a different here and now, and we're almost certainly going to experience a different future. Even if you're an identical twin, even if you're married and joined at the hip with your partner, you're going to have and experience a different future from each other, because everything is changing, and change is happening at a faster rate because of digitization. We are experiencing much, much more change in 1 year, in 1 day, than what our great-great-grandparents were experiencing throughout their lifetimes. With social media, with electronic media, everything now, messaging, we're being bombarded, we're being overwhelmed with stimulus, and we're asked to vote in a couple of weeks on The Voice. There are just so many things happening in parallel throughout the world that it's reasonable to feel overwhelmed and to worry about what's going to happen. There are things happening at the economic level. There are things happening politically. There are things happening to our health on a daily basis. We are just being inundated with questions. We're being challenged by people from different generations, even the young people these days. Young 5-year-olds, 4-year-olds have certain entitlements, or believe to have certain entitlements, which make it challenging for their parents and for all of us. We hear of people getting sick. We hear of people having terminal illness, and they're very young and vibrant, and you just can't believe that these things are happening. But these things have always been happening. It's just that we're getting informed more accurately and more timely now than at any time in the past. So because we work and live in an uncertain world, if you're too much of a perfectionist, as Tony Robbins says, then you're wired for pain, because in an ever-changing environment, if you want perfection, if you want it all your own way, my way or the highway, you're going to be causing grief to other people, and you're going to be causing grief to yourself, because the world is changing and changing rapidly, and that change is increasing at a faster pace. So we need to learn how to work with the change and the changes, and not to become too possessive and too special with our entitlements, and to understand that things are changing. There are certain things and there are certain rituals that you can introduce into your life to bring certainty. Certain things such as waking up and having a prayer sequence, or waking up and doing a priming sequence. That is something that you can do on a daily basis, so that you can start your day with gratitude, with being, grounded, balanced, and trying to get at least a few elements into your day that help you feel certain and contribute to your certainty. So a lot of people talk about, and Tony Robbins has harped on this as well, that there are certain rituals that we can include in our life, like having a celery juice first thing in the morning, doing some exercise first thing in the morning, praying first thing in the morning, having a shower, shaving first thing in the morning, so you get your day off to a certain start. How many people do you know, if they don't have their coffee in the morning, or if they don't wake up following a certain sequence, that they're grumpy and unhappy and their whole world is destroyed? Similarly, we need to understand that we need some certainty in our life to help maintain and keep us sane, and to manage and to promote our sanity. So, as we say, there are certain things that we need in our life to bring our sanity. Now, we need our lunchtime to happen at a particular time. We need to have a certain breakfast every morning. We need certain rituals. Some people just need to go to the gym or go on a run, or do something. And if they miss that sequence, if their day is not commenced in a certain way, then they lack that certainty, and their whole day is out of sync and out of kilter. And some people need certainty more than other people. But by the same token, we just need to appreciate and understand and respect that there are sensitivities that come with certainty. Anthony Robbins also says that when you're uncertain, nothing else really matters. Uncertainty for some people just overwhelms them. They become anxious. They become worried about their future. They spend too much time thinking about what's going to happen. They doubt themselves. They focus on their fears, on their irrational fears. They create stories. They create pictures in their mind. And that's why we need certainty, because what certainty delivers is it can enable you to have a certain level of trust. So if you want to have trust in your family, if you want to have trust in your team, what you need to be able to do is to provide a certain level of certainty to everybody. And the certainty can come in terms of communication. If you know what's going to happen, if you know what's going to be planned for the day, to let other people know in advance, so that they can create in their minds a certain amount of certainty. Because once people have certainty, especially from a work perspective, then it makes the day a little easier, to say the least. So wherever possible, give yourself certainty by trying to find out a little bit more about what's going on, and just to understand that there are people out there who crave certainty more than others. So I guess the best rule of thumb is, where possible, create certainty for others through communication, and also try and cover yourself off with trying to create as much certainty as you can, without, of course, going overboard. The other thing that the author, or Anthony Robbins, talks about is that, as we said before, we've got these 6 basic needs, but they don't have the same weighting. Not all of those needs that we have are weighted the same for each person. They are differently weighted for different people, and it's up to you to understand what your needs are and to weight them accordingly, depending on what is important to you, what your goals are, and all of the things that make you tick. So it's important to understand, once again, that each of these don't have the same weighting. They are weighted differently, and the weightings can shift and alter at different times of a person's life, depending on what's happening to them. For example, if you have a health scare, then certain things are going to shift in the weightings. Anthony Robbins also goes on to say that people will destroy their own needs in order to give them certainty. Sometimes not doing something gives you certainty. As Anthony Robbins said, that people will do more to avoid pain than to gain pleasure. And people sometimes make an assessment, trying to figure out what the risks are and what the rewards are. And in some cases you say, well, look, the risk is higher than the reward. So what I'll do is I prefer not to get the reward just so I can eliminate the risk. And that's a reason why a lot of people end up not doing things in their life. They don't ask a person out. They don't go on a holiday for risk of the plane falling out of the sky. They don't do things for the risk of failure. In order to save face, they prefer not to do anything at all, which is an absolute shame, because as we learn from Anthony Robbins, we need to grow and develop and to take risks throughout our life, because it's by living outside your comfort zone that you grow and develop, and you know that's where the wow is, just outside your comfort zone. So we need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. But this sense of self-sabotage happens where people are overwhelmed by the thought of being uncertain. And for some people, they need to be certain in order to act. But the greatest certainty is that we're going to be uncertain. The future, nobody's been to the future. Nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow. But as we learnt at the seminar with Anthony Robbins and through all the books and teachings that we've picked up over the years, there are patterns in life. Life is cyclical. Humans are habitual in nature. Sooner or later, we will do the right thing. Sooner or later, the pattern will re-emerge, and it's all about being able to see patterns, understand patterns, and to utilize these patterns for our benefit. So unless you take on lots of problems, unless you solve lots of problems, unless you enjoy being teleological in nature and finding solutions to all of your problems, then you're not going to build a inventory of maps and patterns in your mind to be able to deal with the many other problems that are most certainly going to come our way throughout our lives as the world changes around us, as our body changes, as our relationships change, and as everything changes and continues to change. So what else can we learn? Anthony Robbins talks about the fact that when we are stressed, when we are worried, when we are anxious, our physiology, our body, our motion changes dramatically. When we breathe, we tend to breathe more shallowly, and we worry about things that are not worth worrying about. And as we say, there are people who want certainty. There are other people who prefer certain elements of their life to be uncertain, to be spontaneous, just to do things and just to hope for the best and see where it takes you. I remember reading a book throughout the year here, and it was entitled, I think, A Year of Yes, where a lady who was a CEO, who was very, very fixed in her views and in her ways, decided just to say yes to everything and see where those yeses took her. And she learned and she realized that by saying yes to everything, by not fighting life, but by surfing life and working with life, working with your fears, you can actually have some wonderful surprises. I remember working at IBM many years ago, where my manager, Ray Smith, would always say the principle that he worked by was no surprises. We didn't want any good surprises, but we didn't want any bad surprises. We wanted to try and be on top of things at all the time and to communicate clearly and openly with everybody, just to make sure that everybody was on the same page. But the reality is that people do love good surprises, and they just hate terrible surprises. And the surprises that we don't want are the problems. Fair enough, there are people who don't even like good surprises because they are so insecure and they don't like being in the limelight. But in life, I guess Anthony Robbins continues to tell us that we need a mission, and we need that mission to be filled. We need to understand and to follow and to hear our calling or callings, and to do the things that we have been gifted to do, because we are all different. And I'll say this and I'll say it again and again and again, and Anthony Robbins reminds us about this all the time. We are all different from each other, but the reason why God makes us different from each other, the reason why God makes us and our environment and our world varied and variable and different from each other, so it can be exciting, so it can be interesting, but so that it can be different for us. We're different from each other, and because we're different from each other, we're different for each other. The objective is to take those differences that we have, those gifts, those charismata, and use them to live a better life is the key learning, and to fulfill our calling, and to understand that if you seek too much certainty, then your life is going to be boring. But for some people, a boring life is also a good life. We're all different, and we need to appreciate and be sensitive to that, and to embrace those differences, but to also seek a bit of flavour. Now, we can't go through life always wanting vanilla. To seek a little bit of flavour in a controlled and managed way, where we indulge ourselves and say yes to more things, and not worry about where it leads us and the potential issues that it will seed. Because as Marie Forleo says, as Anthony Robbins says, whatever problems we have in our lives, we'll figure it out. We'll sort it out. We'll work out what we need to do, because humans are ingenious. Doesn't matter what problem you throw at us, we will find a way. We will find an answer, and we'll be able to consider the first, second and third level consequences of our action, and hopefully be able to make decisions that are going to help us. And if we're on the wrong track, guess what? We'll just change our decision, change our actions, and get back on the right track. It's not all that hard. So the other thing that Anthony Robbins says is that with these needs, it's important to sequence them correctly for you, and it's also important to understand the sequence for those people around us. But he says that if you can fulfill 2 or 3 of people's human needs, then they will become addicted to you. They will love you. They will love being around you. So it's a really easy formula. All you need to do is to find out what makes you tick. Understand the sequence and the approximate weightings of your basic human needs, and to fulfill them, to do the half dozen things, to do the certain things, to find the gap, to be the gap filler, and to do whatever you have to do to make or bring some happiness and fulfillment and joy to those needs. As long as those needs, of course, are God-pleasing, as long as when you're filling those human needs, you're filling them for the right reason, you're doing it to serve God with all your heart, mind and soul, and you're also doing it to love your neighbour as you love yourself. It's got to be done for the right reason. Now, you don't just do it just to tick the box and satisfy your own selfishness. Those needs, those basic human needs, need to be aligned to something which is more than just your own ego. You need to be doing things from a mission perspective to help others, to be God's partner in creation, and to serve God and to be a servant of God, to serve others, to be the best parent you possibly can be, to be the best son or daughter you can possibly be, the best brother or sister, the best work colleague, the best community member. Now, it's all about giving, not taking, is one of the key elements that comes from Anthony Robbins' UPW. But you need to convince yourself. Nobody else can convince you. Nobody else can tell you what is going to fulfill you. But one thing for sure and for certain, it's not going to be fulfilling your own ego. You need to be doing things for other people. Because as Scott Peck says in his wonderful book, The Road Less Traveled, love, true love, is all about sacrificing yourself, giving of yourself to others and giving to others that they can't give to themselves. So we need to do the things that fulfill you, not the things that meet your willpower. And it's important to talk about willpower, because Anthony Robbins says that if you depend on your willpower, you won't necessarily achieve the things you want to achieve. Because willpower, fair enough, is a muscle, but it's something that depletes throughout the day. Science informs us that willpower is strongest first thing in the morning. That's why it's best to have your routines first thing in the morning. Go to the gym, do your prayers, do your priming, offer your gratitude, and do all of those wonderful things first thing in the morning. Because willpower throughout the day, as you make decisions, as you solve problems, your willpower dissipates throughout the day. And by the end of the day, or later in the day, you're basically at the lowest ebb of your willpower. And that's why many people often make their worst decisions or towards the end of the day, or after they've made a lot of other decisions throughout the day, because you get overwhelmed with, making decisions. Yes, no, maybe, yes, no, maybe. And it gets to the point where you just get worn down. And children know this. For those who are parents, for those who have little ones in their lives, you know that a child will just persist until they break you down. There's only so many no's that you can say before you just have to say yes, just to get them off your back, just to get your sanity back. And it's just the reality of life. So the key message, once again, that Anthony Robbins tells us is don't depend too much on your willpower, because your willpower will only get you so far. What you need to do is you need to have a self-fulfilling life, which is principally guided through your basic human needs, which have been prioritized in a sustainable way to give you what you want in your life, to fill you, to fill your needs, to make you feel joyous and happy, to enable you to do and express and execute your calling so that you live the best possible life you can live. So I think I'll leave it there for now. You know, we're making very, very good progress. I'm really happy that I've taken this initiative. Hadn't planned to do this, but by the same token, I've been doing Jim's 5 a.m. club for almost 3 or just over 3 years now, and I've got a library of over 1,600 vlogs, so I no longer have a problem talking for as long as I need. I don't need to edit what I say, I don't need to script what I say. It just comes from the heart and from my memory and from the notes that I've taken over the years, and of course from all the other vlogs that I've enjoyed throughout my past 3 years. So join me, stay with me, and I promise you I can teach you more about more things than most other people that you're connected to can ever hope to teach you. So wishing you all the best. Have a great day. Enjoy this magnificent Sydney spring sunrise from this wonderful vantage point that I have here on the International Passenger Terminal. I'm surprised there hasn't been any passenger ships coming in to block off this view, but I'll take it. Just unbelievable. I could be up here with the best view in the world, seeing the ferry boats moving eloquently across the harbour, going on their merry way, doing their job, and being all by myself. All I've got is a dozen or so swallows flying around here, keeping me company, and it's just a wonderful place to be. And if you're ever in Sydney, make sure you come up here to the International Passenger Terminal. It's easy to find, it's easy to get to, and just enjoy the view here. You may want to bring up a little table and a tablecloth and some lunch or breakfast and make it a date. Anyway, take care, wishing you all the best, and we'll chat again soon. Bye for now.